Hey guys, welcome back. I have Coach Henry Torano on, and we were talking about some of the things we wanted to discuss. And I had this idea in my head of there's so much conversation out there about this biohacking model, and everybody trying to understand all of the data that's going on inside of their system. And so you're seeing so many products like Whoop and Aura and Apple Watch and Fitbit and all these different things tracking all this data. And so I wanted to go to Henry and just ask him kind of what he thought about that. So Henry, I kind of just want to kick this conversation off by asking a blunt question. Do you think that all of this data tracking is a net positive or a net negative for clients?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a good thing um, because of the amount of awareness that it brings to recovery and sleep patterns and possible biomarkers that could affect that. Uh, it's something that as we talk about it a little more, we have to take the actual data values with a grain of salt. Um, but it's fairly new. It's making huge strides in the way that this technology is improving. And I've heard from some experts that they are fully confident that it will be very reliable in the near future.
Interesting. So, just so that if people aren't too sure what all these devices are, can you just tell people essentially what are some of the big metrics that are being tracked by some of these devices?
Yeah, so heart rate, that's a staple amongst them. HRV in one form or another, uh, activity levels throughout the day, um, sleep and sleep quality, and that's where it gets a little complicated to actually get sold on it. Is the way that they're tracking and things that could affect it. Uh, and then it just takes a numeric value given by their own proprietary algorithms to provide a recovery score and give the person an idea of how hard they've worked, or how hard their body is working and possible readiness.
So who might the clients be that you would want to start tracking some of these more granular data pieces? Who would definitely benefit from this?
I think the utility that I see in it, and it's again having people, making people have awareness surrounding these practices. Um, that's 95% of our clients, because they really do underestimate the value of sleep, the possible impact of meal timing, types of meals, alcohol consumption, huge. Uh, what they're actually doing in the gym and how their body is perceiving those workouts and that amount of work. So it's very few clients, at least of the clients whom I work with, are savvy enough and have can figure this thing out of intuition. Um, but yeah, and again, we'll talk about some of the ins and outs. But you know, as a whole, I definitely do like the practice of it.
I think what you said is really interesting on the awareness part. Not, and you said it really well. It's not about taking every little granular metric that pops out of this, machine or tool. It's about saying, "Oh, that's interesting. I did this yesterday, and now all of a sudden I'm not feeling very good. I'm just going to throw that in the back of my head and kind of remember that maybe next time that I do that." I think from some of the other coaches in my conversations on this, that seems to be where the biggest value add is not in the complexity of it, but in the very simple, it's like, that's interesting. I might need to think about that a little bit more. Or I travel, and every time that I travel, I feel like hell, and I notice that my recovery score gets worse. Would you say, though, that there are types of clients or situations where you would just say, no, I don't think that you should be looking at those types of metric points?
Yes, there's actually clients for whom this may be a problem if it does create more stress surrounding it. So the client that wants to be anal about those scores and change, the entire, rhythm of the day because of what the band or the software said, like you're taking it a step too far. And, based on what you just said, I describe it as looking at your car's dashboard, right? You've got like five different, um, measurements and gauges and needles on there, and you know more or less where they usually are. But just because your oil level ticks like a line downward, you don't stop the car and take it to the shop, right? I mean, hell, you'll get the check engine light and still not do anything for 3 months.
That's so true.
So, looking at these things, it's like you're on a 3-hour drive, and once, maybe 3 times the entire ride, you kind of looked and see where things were, but it really didn't change much. I think the power of it really comes with, after years or at least months of use, where you can actually see patterns, and then when things aren't right, they make you think, like, this is the first time that whatever one of these metrics has been this low or this high. I wonder what could have caused that. And then you start asking yourself questions, what did I do yesterday? What did I eat? Did I not sleep right? Am I under stress? And I think it's very positive that, anything that can make the public think about these things, I think, the way you describe it will bring a net positive to it.
Yeah, I think, gosh, I like the analogy to the car, because it just brings it home for so many people that are like, maybe I don't need to be so granular. Also, too, I think it's interesting, not only with the speed of computing and the speed of cloud computing, but these metrics are getting easier to get, right? So you don't have, I remember when I did HRV back in the day, you had to put the heart rate strap on, then you had to go into a software piece, then you had to log in to see everything. It was brutal. And this was maybe 7 years ago. And now we're actually in talks with a company right now that aggregates all of those metrics from all the different pieces of software or hardware, and puts it into one dashboard. So it's like all of a sudden this is getting pretty easy, where it shouldn't be stressful if you're not creating the stress around it. So it's kind of an interesting concept. Where are some points where, like, if you're thinking about an athlete, for example, what are some of the metrics that you like to see some data on here and there?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely like to see trends in HRV and heart rate. Again, I emphasize on trends, because I really don't care if your heart rate's like 5 beats higher or lower, or the actual number, unless it's like a noticeable increase or decrease. But this is what's normal for you, and a 10 beat deviation from that definitely does mean something in resting heart rate. Same for HRV. Is it high? Is it low? And there are actual implications to both of those, and that's where it starts getting cloudy as far as how valid are these actual HRV numbers, like the absolute value compared to a more sophisticated device, namely omega wave scores. But I do want to see how you respond to that. Is this much higher or much lower than usual? What may have caused it? And again, I'll come back to the alcohol piece, because this is the biggest aha moment for clients. Like, I had a few drinks last night, and holy shit, look at what HRV did. Right? And, does it mean you can't work out? Probably not. They're working out. They have good workouts, but it's like, well, this definitely affects the way that my body is working.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge piece there. I'm in the same boat as you, as far as, having, been tracking for, I want to say, over 10 years. I started using a software or method, or whatever you want to call it, that's called RestWise. They're still around. Not sure how they go about it now, but back then you had an oximeter in your night table. As soon as the alarm clock sounded, you put that on, on your finger, give it 2 or 3 minutes, and then you'd input your oxygen saturation, resting heart rate, body weight. But what I liked about that one, it had a lot of user inputs that were taken into account. Color of urine, how do you feel energy wise, are you sore, so forth and so on. So it makes a little more sense, and it provides a little more guidance for the computer or the formula to provide a score, not only based on on the actual data pulled from the machine, but subjective scoring on that.
Gotcha. One of the things I think is interesting is, and I can't remember which machine, it honestly doesn't even matter, but one of those machines tracks sleep based on movement, and there's a lot of variability to the efficacy of something like that. And I did want to mention this as well for the folks who don't know. HRV is heart rate variability. Henry, can you just give a basic background about what heart rate variability is and why you're interested in it?
Yeah. So everybody is familiar with resting heart rate, right? And it's given in a value of how many beats in a minute. What most people don't realize is that if you had a heart rate of 60, for example, that would suggest 1 beat every second for a minute. But you don't get that beat at precisely 1.0000 seconds, right? It may be at 1.01 or 0.50 or 0.99 of a second, so forth and so on. So heart rate variability measures the deviations from beat to beat and provides you a total of the variability in there. And what that tells us is, how hard or how clock-like is your heart working. And the other thing that people fail to understand is that low variability means your heart is working, on the spot, like a machine, like a Swiss clock. That's actually not necessarily good. We want high variability. This means that you're relaxed. This means that your body is able to handle its normal staying alive functions without having to do extra work. So if your heart goes into that low variability zone, it's working a little extra hard just to, bring you back to homeostasis. And that process or that extra work is what we call allostatic load. And that's really what we want to look at. How hard is your body working or, to bring you back to homeostasis?
And I think that, and I'll go to the layman side because that's where I sit for sure, is so much of what fitness clients need to think about is how they actually get out of doing fitness on a daily basis. So how likely are they to be able to actually relax? So these types of metrics are really interesting so that you can actually have awareness, like Henry is saying, of do I actually get relaxed? And I think that some people, to your earlier point, are just blown away by the fact that they may never actually relax. They might fall asleep, but they wonder why they're waking up 6-7 times because they're not actually relaxing. Cortisol levels are all over the place. And some of these metrics can give you some insight into that if you don't go overboard and try to have every little, metric understood at all times of the day. So Henry, if you were going to leave somebody with the idea of, if I have never done any of this before, where might be a good place to start if I wanted to track some of these metric pieces? Would it be Whoop or Aura or Fitbit for my steps? Like, where would you tell somebody to start looking?
I think that's highly dependent on budget. They obviously do come at a cost. There are some numerous apps that you just download and your phone gives you like an approximate of sleep. Of course, most of them don't have an apparatus on you. So whether it be movement or whatever it is, they're not really tracking. I'll start by saying that as a whole, and yes, as a very general advice to humanity, you need more sleep. This thing is probably going to, whichever one you use is probably just going to tell you that you're not sleeping enough. So yes, I'd say I like it for the awareness piece, but be ready to make a change in the back end. Otherwise, honestly, don't waste your money. I can tell you right now what the overall consensus is going to be on all of them, but use them to convince yourself and be ready to actually make a change after it starts giving you some recommendations.
Well said. Henry, I really appreciate you coming on today. I think this will be really beneficial for a lot of folks because this is just becoming a topic that's getting to be all over the place right now. So I think it's good perspective to think about that awareness piece a lot. Anyways, Henry, anything you want to leave folks with? Are we good to go?
I think we're good to go. Check out OPEX and Big Dawgs, actually BLGs, and just start smashing those. And maybe we don't need any of these.
If you've never heard the term BLG, that's Basic Lifestyle Guideline. It's the opposite of sexy, but it is extremely effective. Anyways, guys, thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
See ya.